In this screencast, I'm going to show you how you can conditionally format a cell based on a formula. Now that phrase, based on a formula, it'll become a little more clear here in a moment, but an example of what we're going to be doing in this screencast, we've got a bunch of batches over here, production date and ship date, and maybe you want to highlight, you want to conditionally highlight, green here, all of those whose production dates were between these two values, April 15th and October 15th of 2018. You can change this, so I can change the date here and it automatically readjusts. Maybe I can change the year. The conditional formatting rules over here for what we are highlighting or formatting are conditional depending upon a formula that we enter in the conditional formatting tool. I've got this file called names and numbers, and I just kind of wanted to show you how we can format based on a formula. We have the name, phone number, student ID of some students. I've got the name here. I am first going to show you how we can enter into cell G2 here the name, and it's going to highlight the name over here. This is going to be based on a simple formula. I'm going to highlight the column that we want to format if it matches the name over here. And then I'm going to go to conditional formatting. I'm going to select new rule. Now the rule type, I'm going to use a formula. Now what you put in here has to be a true false. The result of this formula that you put into this box has to evaluate to either true or false. If it's true, you're going to format it to however you specify down here. Before I put in the formula, I'm just going to specify the format, and I'm just going to use maybe a nice light blue. And let's put in, I'm going to put in a formula here. Now this is really important. The formula that you're putting in here is only evaluating for the upper leftmost cell of the range that you have highlighted here before you've selected that conditional formatting tool. So right now we're looking at A2. And I can just say A2 equals, and I'm going to move this a little bit, equals G2. If that's true, when I'm in cell A2, then we're going to highlight it blue. So right now Harry is not the same thing as Timothy, so that's not going to be highlighted. So I'm going to click OK. Now a lot of people do this and they get discouraged because they think they did it wrong, and then they kind of give up on conditional formatting. It's really important, so let's go back to the conditional formatting tool, manage rules, edit rule. It's really important that you take a look at the references. Remember, this formula is only for cell A2. When we look down though into more cells of this range, this column, it's always going to be evaluating A2 because the default is a completely absolute reference. What I can do is I can toggle this using F4. So let's go ahead and make it completely relative. That means when we're in cell A3, because we've gone down one row, it's going to be evaluating this first term as A3. And it's going to be checking to see if A3 is equal to absolute reference G2. Now when I press OK, and I press OK again, it does that correctly, and it's highlighting Harry. And I can change this to Carrie or any other of the names over here, and it's going to highlight that. Now maybe you wanted to highlight the entire row all at once. Let me show you how we can do that. We can highlight our range over here, go back to conditional formatting, manage rules, edit the rule, and again what I'm trying to do is highlight the entire row. So let's actually cancel and go back one, because I want to change what I apply this to. I want to apply this to the entire range here, cells A2 to C11. And then I can click here and I can do edit the rule. Now this is applying to the entire A2 to C11. Remember, the formula that goes in here only applies to the upper left of the range that we specified, A2 to C11. I'm going to change this to, I'm going to toggle this using F4 so that we get it with a $A2. What that means is if I'm in cell A2, that's going to be $A2. If I go over the cell B2 that we're conditionally formatting, I've gone over one column, but I'm still in the same row. $A2 is going to still be $A2. So it'll conditionally format cell B2 based upon A2. And remember, we're checking to see if that's equal to whatever name we put up here into G2. Same thing when we're conditionally formatting cell C2 because I have that dollar sign, I'm really looking at dollar sign A2, and I'm checking to see if A2 is equal to carry. If that's true, then we conditionally format. So this is going to conditionally format one row at a time. And then I can go ahead and click OK, OK again, and then it's going to highlight the entire row corresponding to that particular person that we type in that cell. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to highlight rows in which there's a blank. We'll first look at highlighting rows in which the phone number is blank. So this row, row 4 and row 8, should be highlighted. Before we do that though, I wanted to remind you of how we can use logical functions in cells, because we're going to use formulas. We're going to use this formula in our conditional formatting. If I do equals is blank is a conditional, it's a true false, it's a boolean, it's going to return either true false. So I can do equals this cell. Now if that's blank, then it's going to be true. I can copy this up and copy this down, and we're going to use that is blank function in conditional formatting. So I'm going to highlight this entire region as I did before. I'm going to go up to conditional formatting, manage my rule. I'm going to edit this rule. The formula that I'm going to put in here, remember, if it evaluates true, it's going to format it to whatever you specify. If this formula evaluates false, it's not going to format it. Remember, this is applying to cell A2. I'm not looking at column A because I want to check to see if the phone number is empty. So I'm going to do if is blank B2. Now I'm going to toggle F4 like we did before to make it an absolute column and relative row. That way, in the entire row 2, so cells A2, B2, and C2 are all going to be evaluating B2 because I have that dollar sign there. Because it's the middle column there that we're checking to see if it's blank. If that's blank, then that's going to evaluate to true, and if that's true, we're going to format it. So that's all I need to do, and I can click OK. I can click OK again, and it's highlighting the two rows in which column B is blank. We can also add another one. So I'm going to add in a new rule. This is going to be the same thing. Going to use a formula, but in this case I'm going to do if the third column is blank, so I'll do C3, toggle that twice until it's $C2, and in this case maybe we want to format it a light orange, and I can click OK, and I can click OK again. So these are all rows in which we are missing information. You can combine them into a single rule. So if I highlight the data, go back and manage our rules, and I'm just going to delete the first one we created, the blue one. I'm going to delete. I'm going to edit the second one. We can use an OR statement. So we can say OR, and I'll do is blank of $B2, comma, is blank $C2. That means if either of the columns B or C are blank, then it's going to highlight. So I can click OK and click OK again, and that's how we can do that. So that's how you can conditionally format based upon a formula. In particular, we're using the is blank function. So hopefully that gives you a better idea of how we can use formulas in conditional formatting in Excel. And really, the sky's the limit. You can use all sorts of and, or, not functions. There are all sorts of is functions, is blank, is error, and so on in Excel. And so you can really do some sophisticated stuff with conditional formatting.